Hey guys, in this video I'll show you an off-tank build for trials. It's intended for random runs in the group finder, or basically any run where you're playing with random players. You can make better specialized setups once you know your group and know what trial you're going up against. But these setups are the best default options for random runs. So if your raid leader in your core group wants you to run something different, they're most likely right. I recently released a main tank build as a YouTube video and as a guide on my website. And the main and off-tank builds are designed in a way to together cover the highest amount of different buffs and debuffs, and not overlap too many of them. So if your tank teammate from a random group is also using my build, you can completely skip talking about sets and splitting different duties, because it was already taken care of. As always, you'll be able to find logs of some veteran trial clears in which I'm using this build in this video's description. This off-tank build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. Let's start with subclassing. The setup is going to use Sorcerer's Daedric Summoning, Arcanist's Soldier of the Apocrypha, and Nightblade's Siphoning skill lines. The Daedric Summoning will give you access to the Summon Charge Archnag ultimate, which grants your group Major Berserk, which increases damage done by 10%. It will also give you access to a very strong damage shield, either Regenerative Ward or Hardened Ward. Soldier of Apocrypha grants you a lot of armor, thanks to Ages of the Unseen passive. It grants your entire group minor evasion, which reduces their AoE damage taken by 10%, and the delayed heal from Runegard of Stillwaters is an extremely good defensive tool. Siphoning is not crucial for the build, but it will increase your ultimate generation, thanks to the Catalyst passive, and it gives us access to Siphoning attack skill, which makes sustain trivial. If your base class is Templar, you can still use this build by changing the Siphoning skill line to Templar's Restoring Light. Moving on to skills. This is the base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. First we have Shield Throw with the Taunt, Sage's Remedy and Maim combination on it. It's a ranged taunt which will heal you and apply the Major Maim debuff for 10 seconds, which decreases enemies' damage down by 10%. Next we have Trample with the Frost, Assassin's Misery and Heroism combination on it. It's a 1.5 second channel that will grant you Major Heroism for 10 seconds, which translates to roughly 20 ultimate per cast. Siphoning attacks will passively heal you, improve your sustain, and you can use it to trade 4000 health for 2600 stamina and magicka, which will also trigger the transfer passive, granting you 2 ultimate. Next we have Soul Burst, with the damage shield, Anchorage's Potency, and Courage combination on it. It's a damage shield for yourself and your teammates that consumes a Soul Gem, to grant 3 ultimate to you and your teammates, up to once every 5 seconds. It also grants everyone minor courage for 20 seconds, increasing weapon and spell damage by 215. Regenerative Ward is a damage shield equal to 34.1% of your max health, that also heals you for 5.2% of your max health. It will also grant you and allies within 20 meters minor endurance and intellect, increasing stamina and magical recoveries by 15%. Next, Gibbering Shelter, an emergency ultimate that puts a massive damage shield on you and periodically applies damage shields to your allies when you take damage. Having it slotted also passively grants 81 stamina and magical recoveries from Wellspring of the Abyss. Croxivere Armor is your source of crucial Major Resolve buff, which also applies Minor Breach to attackers and generates cracks, though you have no way of spending it without slotting some situational skills. You can replace Croxivere Armor with one of situational skills if you have a reliable main tank, using the Expansive Frostcloak skill. Next we have Wield Soul, with the Pull, Druid Resurgence and Cowardice combination on it. It's a chain ability for stacking smaller adds that also restores 600 stamina. It should also be used on unchainable enemies to apply the Major Cowardice debuff, which reduces enemies' weapon and spell damage by 430. Next we have Elemental Susceptibility, a free ability that applies the crucial Major Breach debuff, which reduces enemies' armor by 5948 and applies Burning, Concussed and Shield stats effects every 7.5 seconds. Concussed applies minor vulnerability for 4 seconds, which increases enemies' damage taken by 5%, and can trigger off balance when paired with lightning elemental blockade from your healer. Chilled applies minor maim for 4 seconds, which reduces enemies' damage done by 5%, and if you are holding an ice staff the moment Chilled procced, it will also apply minor brittle for 4 seconds, which increases enemies' critical damage taken by 10%. Next up we have Elemental Blockade. This ability will constantly apply the enchant of your backbar weapon, which in our case will be Crusher. It will also apply minor breach debuff to enemies who are chilled, which reduces enemies' armor by 2974, and they will always be chilled thanks to elemental susceptibility. It will also grant projectile-only damage shields to you and your teammates. Next we have Runegard of Still Waters, an ability that places a delayed heal on you, which triggers when you take damage below 50% HP. It also grants minor resolve to you and allies around you, which increases armor by 2974. It also grants you minor protection, which is removed when the heal effect procs. It also snares enemies around you when cast. Summon Charge Atronach is an ultimate that provides a synergy that provides the major berserk buff for your entire team for 10 seconds, which increases damage done by 10%. So that was the base setup, but now I'm gonna show you a bunch of situational skills, which you can use to tailor this base setup to specific fights. Soul Burst is the first skill that has to go when you need to slot something situational, unless the situational skill specifically says that it's replacing something else. If the main tank provides you with major resolve from their expansive Frostcloak, your Cruxiver armor becomes the first skill to replace, instead of Soul Burst. Inner Rage is a replacement for Shield Throw for easier fights. You're giving up the 10% damage reduction and the heal from Shield Throw, but you're providing an extremely strong synergy for your group. Next we have Revealing Flare, slotted for more difficult fights, where you need more damage mitigation. It's a skill that passively grants major protection, reducing your damage taken by 10%. It will also trigger the Magic Aid passive, which increases magic recovery by 10%. Next is Bound Aegis. Use it in fights where you need lots of block mitigation. Next, Crushing Shock. Use it in fights where you need to interrupt an enemy who's standing far away from you. Next, Impervious Rune Ward. Use it in fights with lots of damage over time. Next, Razor Caltrops. A source of AoE Major Breach for trash fights or boss fights with lots of ads. Next, Rune of the Colorless Pool. An ability that applies minor vulnerability and minor brittle for 20 seconds, which makes keeping up these debuffs very easy. Next, Pulsar, a skill that combined with charged Ice Staff provides almost guaranteed AoE shield procs. Use it in trash packs. Charging Maneuver provides your entire group with a total of 45% bonus movement speed. Very useful in trash packs, but it consumes a lot of stamina. And lastly we have Resolving Vigor, an extremely strong heal over time that can help you survive more difficult fights. Now let me show you a bunch of examples of how your final setup could look after you apply these situational skills to your base setup. This is a setup for dealing with trash packs. Siphoning attacks gets replaced by Razor Caltrops, because you need an AoE source of Major Breach. Elemental Susceptibility gets replaced by Pulsar, so you can provide AoE Minor Brittle with it, which combined with Frost Elemental Blockade will provide AoE Minor Breach. This is a setup with lots of damage mitigation, for bosses that hit very hard. Trample gets replaced by Resolving Vigor, because it's a strong heal over time that will also proc Powerful Assault. Soul Burst gets replaced by Revealing Flare, because it provides 10% damage mitigation. And this is a setup for when your base class is Templar. Siphoning attacks gets replaced by Extended Ritual, and Cruxiver armor gets replaced by Restoring Focus, because it's a better major resolve skill. Now as for passives, the only passive you specifically have to skip is Trifocus. I am now very quickly going through all of the passives you should get on the screen. You can either pause the video or look up this list on the website guide. Now moving on to gear. This is a base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. So, Backbarred Saxil's Champion, Frontbarred Powerful Assault, Baron Zaudrus as your monster set, and the Death Dealer's Fete Mythic. Now this is a list of alternative gear that can also be used and might be easier to obtain. It basically lists all useful gear, even sets that are already in the gear table, and situational tab. Now to talk a bit more about traits. Sturdy and Divines are both very good options. Which one is better depends on the specific encounter. Depending on your race and many other aspects, you might be over the armor cap, in which case you can change reinforced pieces to Sturdy or Divines. As for Harmony and Infuse on Jewelry, Harmony is stronger whenever you have at least 2 different synergies available to you, which means that Harmony will be better in the vast majority of situations, but Infuse can be better when playing with randoms, or if the specific encounter makes it really difficult for your teammates to provide you synergies. And Swift is extremely useful for trash packs. As for weapon traits, Charged is an option for the Backbar Ice Staff for trash packs. It will cause Pulsar to be almost guaranteed to proc Chill Stats effect. Now as for enchants. On the body, Tri-stat enchants are very expensive, so you can use a mix of health, stamina and magic enchants before you can afford them. And one more thing, if you're not a Nord, you can use heavy pieces with reinforced trait on your monster set to make up for it. Now let me show you a few examples of final setups you could end up with after applying situational rules to the base setup. This is a beginner setup made with only crafted gear. As I said before, you can use a mix of health, stamina and magicka enchants instead of Tristat, because Tristat enchants are very expensive, and this is Templar gear that you'll outgrow very fast. Now this is an example of a setup if you don't have access to trial gear. Now this is an example of a trash setup you can quickly switch to if you're using gear swap add-ons. Bugbar Ice Staff trait changes to charged, so that Pulsar becomes almost guaranteed to proc shield stats effect. And jewelry traits change to Swift, as movement speed is extremely useful while running through trash packs. Death Dealer's Fete get replaced by Ring of the Wild Hunt. Now moving on to champion points. In the default setup, in the blue tree, you'll want to use Ironclad, which grants 6% direct damage reduction, Duelist Rebuff, which grants 6% single target damage reduction, Focused Mending, which increases your single target healing by 10%, and Bulwark, which increases your armor by 1900. If you run North, you can replace Bulwark with Enduring Resolve. In the red tree, you want to use Boundless Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Bastion, which increases the strength of your damage shields by 15%, and Bracing Anchor, which grants 20% block mitigation, but also a 16% movement speed penalty. If you want to switch your CP for trash packs, the blue tree stays the same, but in the red tree, you'll want to use once again Bonus Vitality, but then also Rejuvenation, which grants 90 of all recoveries, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, and Celerity, which grants 10% movement speed. But the best champion point setup can be very situational, so now I will list all useful CPs for you to choose from. In the blue tree, you have 6 options. The 4 mitigation CPs, Bulwark, which increases your armor, and Focus Mending, which increases your healing. In the red tree, we have way more options. Bonus Vitality increases your max health by 1400. It's great for your survivability if a fight does not have max HP based damage. Fortified increases your armor by 1731. It can help you reach the armor cap if you're missing it in other parts of the build. Rejuvenation increases your health, stamina and magic recovery by 90. It's a decent boost to sustain when you have some slots left. Sustain by Suffering increases your health, stamina and magic recoveries by 150 while you have a debuff on yourself. It's a straight up stronger rejuvenation that only works in some fights, but there's a decent amount of fights where you'll have a constant debuff on yourself. Celerity increases your movement speed by 10%. It's great for fights where you have to constantly move around. It can also be used to offset Bracing Anchor's movement speed penalty. Bastion increases the strength of your damage shields by 15%. It will boost your regenerative ward and soul burst. It's especially good in fights with lots of dots. Shieldmaster decreases cost of your damage shields by 10%. It will reduce the magic cost of regenerative ward and soul burst by a decent amount. Bracing Anchor increases your block mitigation by 20% and reduces your movement speed by 16%. It's great for fights with constant direct blockable damage. Wardmaster reduces your damage taken by 10% while blocking under the effect of a damage shield. It will drain your stamina by forcing you to permablock, but it can be worth it in fights with absurd incoming damage that normally isn't affected by block, such as for example Flame Herald Blase. Arcane Alacrity reduces cost of your dodge roll by 800 while under the effect of a damage shield. Extremely niche. Expert Evasion grants you a free dodge roll every 30 seconds. Once again, extremely niche. Moving on to race. Nord is by far the best race for tanking, due to the increased armor from Rugged and ulti generation from Stalwart. You can complete any content on any race. You will just have to work slightly harder with other races, and you'll have to adjust your build and get more armor from somewhere else. Now moving on to Mundus. The best Mundus is the Achenak, which increases your magic recovery by 310 and causes your armor pieces with the Divine trait to increase it by another 28. If you're struggling with reaching the armor cap of 33,000, then the Lady can also be a decent choice. It increases your armor by 2,744. Moving on to attributes. Majority of the times, you should put all your points into health. However, you need your max stamina to be higher than your max magicka, because the combustion synergy restores your dominant resource, and you want it to be stamina. Because of that, you might have to put some attribute points into stamina if you have passives such as for example the Gift of Magnus racial, or items with bonuses, such as for example 1-piece bonus of Encrates' Behemoth, that increase your max magicka. Put just enough points to make your max stamina higher than your max magicka, and then put the rest into health. Now moving on to food. The best food is Orzorga's smoked bear haunch. However, it's extremely expensive, so you should use Jewels of Mithru instead. It provides only slightly lower stats than Orzorga, while being significantly cheaper. As for other useful foods, we have Orzorga's Red Frofgar, which provides more max health and magical recovery, at the cost of providing no stamina recovery at all. Stamina recovery doesn't work while blocking, so it can be a decent option if you're perma blocking. Bewitched Sugar Skulls provides maximum resources instead of recoveries. It can be decent for fights where you need to block for a very long time during a very specific period, but the pressure is non-existent outside of that specific period, so you can recuperate stamina by heavy attacking freely. Like for example, the first boss in Lucent Citadel trial. The increased maximum resources will also increase the scaling of some of your healing abilities. And the last one is Candied Jester's Coin. Provides only max stamina and magical recovery. It can be decent when you want to reduce your max health during a specific phase of a fight. For example in Cloud Rest. You can eat it right as the execute phase starts, because maximum health becomes a detriment due to the baneful mark mechanic. Moving on to potions. Most of the time you should use the Tri-Stat potions, which restore health, stamina, magicka, and increase all the recoveries. They will greatly improve your sustain. You can craft them by combining Columbine, Baglos, and Mountain's Flower. There are better potions, but they're extremely expensive. Heroism potions can provide 100% uptime on minor heroism buff, which generates ultimate, but they're extremely expensive because they're crafted by combining Dragon Rheum, Dragon's Blood, and Columbine. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below, or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.